In the misty hills of Vermont, where ancient forests guard their secrets like silent sentinels, fate was about to intertwine the lives of a farmer, a wounded horse, and a mystery hidden in the depths of the earth. The early morning fog rolled across Thompson Family Farm as Jack Thompson stood at his kitchen window, coffee cup in hand, watching the sun struggle to pierce through the autumn haze. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was different about this particular morning. A stillness that seemed to hold its breath waiting. A flash of movement at the edge of his property caught his eye. Through the swirling mist, a massive dark shape emerged. A horse, but not just any horse. Its powerful frame belonged to a Clydesdale, its coat matted with mud and what looked disturbingly like blood. The creature moved with a pronounced limp, yet there was an urgency in its steps as it approached the farmhouse. Jack set down his coffee, his weathered hands already reaching for his coat. 20 years of farming had taught him to trust his instincts, and right now, every fiber of his being told him this was important. The horse's eyes met his through the kitchen window, and in that moment, Jack saw something that stopped him cold. Intelligence, fear, and what seemed like desperate determination. "Tom!" he called out to his friend and neighboring farmer, who was already making his morning rounds. "Get Emily from the clinic. We've got something here." The urgency in Jack's voice carried across the morning air, cutting through the mist. Like a knife, as Jack stepped onto his porch, the Clydesdale took a few tentative steps backward, not in fear, but as if beckoning. Its massive head bobbed up and down, eyes never leaving Jack's face. Blood trickled down its right flank, but the horse seemed less concerned with its own injury than with whatever message it was trying to convey. Tom Wilson's truck was already rumbling down the gravel driveway, and Jack could see Emily Parker's veterinary vehicle not far behind. The horse's arrival had set something in motion, something that would lead them all down a path none of them could have anticipated. "Jack, what's going on?" Emily called out as she jumped from her truck, medical bag in hand. Her trained eye immediately assessed the Clydesdale's condition. "That's Thunder. He belongs to the old Sullivan place, but they've been gone for months." The horse, Thunder, pawed at the ground impatiently, taking a few steps toward the tree line before turning back to look at them. Jack had seen enough animals in his life to know when one was trying to communicate. "He wants us to follow him," he said, his voice quiet but certain. Emily quickly pulled supplies from her bag. "He's losing blood, but not critically. Whatever happened to him, it wasn't recent." "This is strange, Jack. These wounds, they don't look like any animal attack I've seen." Thunder whinnied, the sound echoing across the misty field. He took another few steps toward the forest, then stopped, waiting. The morning mist seemed to part before him, revealing a faint trail leading into the dense woods. "We need to follow him," Jack said, already grabbing a flashlight from his porch. "Tom, can you bring the emergency kit from my truck? Something tells me we're going to need it." As they followed Thunder into the forest, the morning fog grew, thicker, wrapping around them like a ghostly shroud. The horse moved with purpose, despite its injury, leading them deeper into territory Jack had known since childhood, but somehow felt different today. The terrain grew steeper, more treacherous. Thunder picked his way carefully through the undergrowth, occasionally stopping to ensure his human companions were still following. The wound on his flank left a sporadic trail of blood drops on the fallen leaves, but the horse seemed to draw strength from some unseen urgency. After 20 minutes of hiking, the tree line broke, revealing a rock face Jack had never noticed before. The morning mist had settled into the small clearing, swirling around their feet like living smoke. Thunder stood before a dark opening in the rock, a cave entrance partially hidden by years of overgrown vegetation. Emily's breath caught in her throat. "Jack, look at the ground." Her flashlight beam revealed fresh tracks in the mud. Human, Footprints, multiple sets leading into the cave's mouth, but there was something else too, something that made Jack's blood run cold. Among the footprints were dark stains that looked disturbingly like blood. Thunder poured at the ground again, more insistently this time. His eyes, reflecting the beam of their flashlights, seemed to plead with them. Whatever was in that cave, the horse had risked its own life to bring them here. "We should call the police," Tom suggested, his voice barely above a whisper. But before anyone could respond, a sound emerged from the cave's depths, faint but unmistakable. A cry for help, echoing through the darkness, carried on the cool morning air. In that moment, Jack knew they didn't have time to wait for authorities. Someone was in there, someone who needed help now. "Emily, stay with Thunder. See what you can do about that wound. Tom, you're with me." Jack's voice was steady, but his heart hammered in his chest as he pulled out his phone to use as an additional light source. The cave's entrance loomed before them, a mouth of darkness that seemed to swallow their flashlight beams. As they stepped into the cave, the temperature dropped noticeably. Their footsteps echoed off the damp walls, creating ghostly whispers that seemed to follow them deeper into the earth. The beam of their flashlights revealed a passage that twisted downward, worn smooth by centuries of water flow. Another cry echoed through the passage, closer now. Jack and Tom exchanged glances, their pace quickening. The cave narrowed, forcing them to walk single file, their shoulders occasionally brushing against the cold stone walls. Then the passage opened up into a larger chamber, and their flashlights revealed something that made them both stop dead in their tracks. The chamber wasn't natural. Old support beams lined the walls, and the remnants of mining equipment lay scattered about. But it was what lay in the center of the chamber that drew their attention. A man lay there, his leg pinned beneath fallen mining equipment. Next to him, a leather satchel had spilled its contents across the cave floor, documents, old photographs, and what looked like maps. But most shocking of all was the wall behind him, where their flashlight beams revealed something that would change everything they thought they knew about their quiet corner of Vermont. To be continued. If this story moved you, if you felt the tension and mystery building with each step into that cave, remember that extraordinary discoveries can come from the most unexpected places. Sometimes it takes the courage of a wounded animal to lead us to truths we never knew existed. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications to find out what Jack and Tom discovered in that cave and learn how one horse's bravery unveiled a secret that had been buried for generations. Leave a like if you believe in the power of animal intuition, and share this video with someone who needs a reminder that the most amazing revelations can come from following your instincts, even when the path ahead seems dark and uncertain. The beam of Jack's flashlight trembled slightly as it illuminated the cave wall. Ancient markings covered the rough surface, but these weren't the crude drawings they'd expected to find. Instead, they were seeing sophisticated engineering diagrams, mathematical formulas, and what appeared to be architectural plans, all etched with remarkable precision into the rock face. Some of the markings were clearly decades old, while others seemed more recent, as if someone had been adding to them over time. The injured man stirred, his face contorted in pain. "Please!" he gasped, his voice weak but urgent. "The documents! They can't fall into the wrong hands." His fingers clawed at the scattered papers around him, trying to gather them despite his trapped leg. Tom was already moving toward the fallen equipment pinning the stranger. "Jack, give me a hand with this." It looks like an old support beam gave way. Together, they assessed the situation. The beam was heavy, but not impossible to move with their combined strength. "Sir, I'm going to need you to stay very still," Jack said, crouching beside the man. "What's your name?" "Benjamin. Benjamin Cooper," the man replied, his breathing labored. "I'm a historian. I've been tracking this for years." His eyes darted to the satchel, then back to the wall markings. They were right. All this time they were right. Jack and Tom positioned themselves on either side of the beam. "On three," Jack commanded. "1, 2, 3. They heaved together, muscles straining against the weight of the old timber. Benjamin bit back a cry of pain as the pressure on his leg eased. Once the beam was cleared, Jack could see that Benjamin's leg was badly injured, but not crushed as they'd feared. "Tom, run back and get Emily. He needs medical attention." As Tom hurried back through the passage, Jack turned his attention to gathering the scattered documents, noting how Benjamin's eyes followed his every move. "The horse," Benjamin said suddenly. "Thunder, he found you. Is he all right?" Jack nodded, surprised. "You know Thunder?" "He saved my life," Benjamin replied, his voice growing stronger. "When they came, he got me away. I didn't think he'd make it back here, let alone bring help." A fit of coughing interrupted his words. Jack continued collecting the papers, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Among them were old newspaper clippings, photographs yellowed with age, and preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Hand-drawn maps that seemed to detail an extensive network of caves beneath the Vermont countryside. But it was a particular photograph that made him pause. It showed his own farmhouse, taken decades ago, with markings and annotations he didn't understand. "Mr. Cooper," Jack said carefully, "what exactly were you looking for down here?" Benjamin's eyes met his, and in them Jack saw a mixture of fear and determination. The truth about what happened in 1947, about why certain farms in this area thrived while others failed, about the real reason the Sullivan family disappeared 3 months ago. He gestured weakly toward the wall. "It's all connected. The formulas, the plans, they're not just random markings. They're proof." The sound of footsteps echoing through the passage announced Emily's arrival with Tom. She rushed to Benjamin's side, her medical training taking over as she assessed his injuries. "This leg needs proper medical attention," she announced. "But first, we need to stabilize it and get him out of here." As Emily worked, Jack found himself drawn back to the wall markings. His flashlight beam revealed more details, dates, coordinates, and what looked like complex equations. Some of the numbers seemed familiar, and with a start, he realized they corresponded to soil composition readings from his own farm's recent tests. "The Sullivan family," Benjamin continued, wincing as Emily tended to his leg. "They found out too much. They were getting close to understanding what these caves really mean." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Thunder was their horse. He was there the night they were taken." Emily's hands paused in their work. "Taken? What do you mean, taken?" But before Benjamin could answer, a new sound echoed through the cave, voices distant but approaching. Benjamin's face drained of what little color it had left. "They found me," he whispered. "You need to get out of here. Take the documents. Please, get them somewhere safe." Jack quickly stuffed the scattered papers back into the leather satchel, his mind racing. The voices were getting closer, and now he could hear the distinct sound of multiple footsteps moving with purpose through the cave system. "There's another way out," Benjamin said urgently. "Behind that rock formation. It leads to an old mining tunnel. Thunder knows the way. He's smarter than any horse I've ever known. He'll lead you out." Emily had finished stabilizing Benjamin's leg, but worry creased her face. "We can't just leave you here." "You have to," Benjamin insisted. "Those people, they're not who they claim to be. They've been watching this area for generations, keeping their secrets buried. The formulas on these walls, they're not just mathematics. They're proof of something they've been hiding since before any of us were born." The approaching voices grew louder, and now they could make out words. "Signals stronger down here. He has to be close. Jack made a quick decision. Tom, help. Me get him up. Emily, grab that satchel. We're all leaving together. Despite Benjamin's protests, they managed to get him to his feet, supporting him between them. The hidden passage Benjamin had mentioned was narrow but navigable. As they maneuvered through it, Jack's flashlight revealed more markings on the walls. These ones different. They looked older, more primitive, yet somehow connected to the complex equations they'd seen in the main chamber. They emerged from the tunnel into a different part of the forest, where Thunder waited patiently, as if he'd known exactly where they'd come out. The horse's wounds had been cleaned and bandaged by Emily's skilled hands, and though he still favored his injured leg, he seemed stronger, more determined. Benjamin's eyes filled with tears at the sight of the horse. "He's been trying to tell us for months," he said softly. "Every time he appeared near your farm, every time he led someone toward the caves, he was trying to expose the truth." Jack helped Benjamin onto a fallen log while Emily checked his bandages. "What truth?" he asked, though part of him feared the answer. "Look at the documents," Benjamin replied. "Look at the soil samples from your farm, the growth rates of your crops, the unusual weather patterns that seem to favor certain properties. It's not chance, Mr. Thompson. Nothing about this valley is natural. They've been experimenting here for decades, using the cave system to hide their work." A branch snapped in the forest behind them, and Thunder's ears pricked forward, his powerful body tensing. They could hear voices coming from multiple directions now. Their pursuers had split up, trying to surround the area. "We need to move," Tom whispered, helping Benjamin to his feet again. "My truck is parked just beyond that ridge. We can make it if we hurry." But as they began to move, bright flashlight beams cut through the trees, and a commanding voice rang out. "Benjamin Cooper, stay where you are. Those documents are government property." Thunder moved suddenly, positioning himself between the group and the approaching lights. His massive frame cast long shadows in the flashlight beams, and for a moment he seemed to grow larger, more imposing. The horse pawed at the ground, snorting steam into the cool air. Emily grabbed Jack's arm. "Look," she whispered, pointing to Thunder's hooves. Where the horse had struck the ground, something gleamed in the dirt, a metal panel covered by years of soil and vegetation. Jack's mind raced back to the equations on the cave walls, the strange markings that had seemed to map something beneath the surface of their peaceful valley. Whatever secret Benjamin had discovered, whatever truth Thunder had been trying to reveal, it was bigger than any of them had imagined. The voices were closing in, flashlight beams sweeping ever closer through the trees. They had seconds to decide: run, hide or stay, and face whatever force had been operating in secret beneath their feet for generations. Thunder's eyes met Jack's, and in them, he saw the same determination he'd noticed that morning, when the wounded horse had first appeared at his farm. Benjamin clutched the satchel of documents to his chest with his free hand. "Whatever you decide," he said quietly, "remember, Thunder didn't just lead you to me today. He led you to the truth. The question is, are you ready to see how deep it goes?" The metal panel beneath Thunder's hooves seemed to hum with an energy they could feel through their boots. Whatever lay beneath the surface of their quiet Vermont valley, whatever secrets had been hidden in those caves for decades, the time for revelation had come. The only question was whether they would survive long enough to understand what they'd discovered. The metal panel beneath their feet vibrated with increasing intensity, a low hum rising from deep within the earth. Thunder's hooves danced nervously on the strange surface as fallen leaves skittered away from an unseen force. Jack's farming instincts screamed that this was wrong. Metal shouldn't be buried under forest soil, and whatever lay beneath definitely shouldn't be humming with power. Emily's veterinary bag slipped from her shoulder as she crouched to examine the panel more closely. Her fingers brushed away decades of accumulated soil, revealing strange markings similar to those they'd seen in the cave. "These symbols," she whispered, "they're not just mathematical formulas. Look at how they're arranged. It's almost like a circuit board." The approaching flashlight beams suddenly converged on their position, accompanied by the unmistakable sound of weapons being drawn. "Step away from the panel," a stern voice commanded. "You're interfering with a classified research site." But Thunder had other ideas. The massive Clydesdale reared up, his powerful hooves striking the metal panel with deliberate force. The impact sent a shockwave through the ground, and for a moment everything seemed to freeze. Then, with a grinding sound that seemed to come from the bowels of the earth itself, the panel began to move. "Stop them!" The command echoed through the trees, but it was too late. The ground beneath their feet shifted, and Jack instinctively grabbed Benjamin to keep him from falling. The panel was splitting apart, revealing a steep staircase that descended into darkness. Thunder nudged Jack's shoulder with his nose, urging them toward the opening. The horse's intelligence seemed almost supernatural now, his eyes reflecting a knowledge that went beyond animal instinct. Without waiting for further prompting, Emily and Tom helped support Benjamin as they hurried down the stairs, Thunder following close behind. The staircase led them into a corridor that looked nothing like the natural cave system above. Smooth metal walls gleamed under emergency lighting that flickered to life as they passed. The air was cool and processed, carrying a faint scent of ozone and something else, something old and secret. "They built this decades ago," Benjamin explained between labored breaths as they moved deeper into the facility. "Right after World War II, the caves were just a cover story. The real research happened down here." Jack's mind reeled as they passed through a series of automatic doors that seemed to respond to Thunder's presence. Research into what? Before Benjamin could answer, a new sound echoed through the corridor, the heavy thud of boots on metal stairs. Their pursuers had followed them down, but Thunder seemed unconcerned, leading them with confident steps toward what appeared to be a dead end. The wall before them bore more of the strange symbols they'd seen in the cave, but these were different. They seemed to pulse with a faint inner light. Thunder approached the wall and pressed his nose against a specific pattern of markings. To everyone's amazement, the wall silently slid open, revealing a vast chamber that defied explanation. The space beyond was filled with equipment that looked both ancient and impossibly advanced. Rows of machines hummed with quiet energy, their purposes unclear, but their power undeniable. But it was what hung suspended in the center of the chamber that drew their collective gasp. A massive, three-dimensional hologram of the entire valley, showing layers of energy patterns flowing beneath the surface like luminous rivers. "Now you understand," Benjamin said quietly, his eyes fixed on the display. "The Sullivan family discovered this place 3 months ago. They found out what was really happening to their land, to all our lands. Why some farms thrived while others failed. Why certain areas seemed blessed with perfect growing conditions while others withered." Emily stepped closer to the hologram, her scientific mind trying to process what she was seeing. "They're terraforming," she breathed. "But not just the surface. They're manipulating the entire ecosystem, right down to the microorganism level." The sound of their pursuers grew closer, but Thunder remained calm, moving to another panel of symbols. As his nose touched the surface, additional displays sprang to life around them, revealing decades of data, experiments, and results. "The government didn't just build this facility to research terraforming," Benjamin continued, his voice growing stronger despite his injuries. "They were testing methods of environmental control on an unprecedented scale. The caves, the formulas on the walls, they're all part of a monitoring system. But something went wrong. The Sullivan family found evidence that the experiments were having unintended consequences. Jack thought about his own farm, about the inexplicably perfect growing conditions he'd always attributed to luck and hard work. What kind of consequences? Benjamin gestured to a particular section of the hologram where the energy patterns seemed to spiral in unusual ways. The changes they made to the ecosystem didn't stay contained. They're spreading, evolving in ways they never anticipated. Thunder was the first to notice. Animals always are. That's why he's been trying to expose this place. He knows something is coming. The chamber suddenly blazed with red warning lights as alarms began to sound. On the main hologram, the energy patterns were shifting, coalescing into new and troubling configurations. Thunder whinnied urgently, moving toward another door that was beginning to iris open. "We need to move," Tom said, supporting Benjamin as they followed the horse. "Whatever's happening, we can't let them catch us now." The new passageway led them deeper into the facility, passing rooms filled with more strange equipment and walls, covered in those glowing symbols. But Thunder moved with purpose, as if he knew exactly where they needed to go. They emerged into what appeared to be a control center, its walls lined with screens displaying data from throughout the valley. Benjamin pulled away from Tom's support and hobbled to a central console, his fingers flying over the controls with surprising familiarity. "The Sullivan family left this for us," he explained as he worked. "Everything they discovered, everything they learned about what's really happening. They knew they were being watched, knew they'd eventually be silenced, but they prepared for that possibility." The screens around them flickered as Benjamin accessed hidden files, revealing decades of classified research and countless records of unexplained phenomena throughout the valley. Thunder stood watch at the door, his ears forward, listening for approaching danger. "Here," Benjamin said, pointing to a particular screen. 3 months ago, the Sullivans detected an anomaly in the terraforming patterns. The changes they'd made to the soil, to the very fabric of the ecosystem, had created something new, something that was beginning to achieve a kind of consciousness. Emily leaned in, studying the data. "Are you saying the valley itself is becoming aware?" "Not just aware," Benjamin replied. "It's waking up. The energy patterns are reorganizing themselves, creating neural-like networks throughout the cave system." Thunder sensed it first. That's why he's been acting so strangely. He's been trying to warn us that we're standing on the edge of something unprecedented. A distant explosion rocked the facility, and Thunder's head snapped up in alarm. The screens showed their pursuers had breached the upper levels and were methodically making their way down, armed with equipment designed to contain whatever they found. "They'll destroy everything," Benjamin said urgently. "They'll bury the truth and everyone who knows about it. We can't let that happen. The valley's transformation, it's too important. If we don't understand what's happening, if we don't learn to work with it instead of trying to control it, the consequences could be catastrophic." Jack moved to the console, his farmer's intuition merging with the incredible reality before him. "How do we stop them?" Benjamin's fingers danced across the controls one last time. "We don't stop them. We let the valley defend itself." He pressed a final sequence of keys, and the facility's lights flickered as power began to surge through hidden conduits. Thunder poured at the ground, and beneath their feet, they could feel the earth itself beginning to respond. The holographic display showed energy patterns throughout the valley flaring to life, connecting in ways that had never been seen before. "The Sullivans didn't disappear," Benjamin said quietly as the power continued to build. "They became part of it. They understood that the only way to protect the truth was to join with what they'd discovered. Thunder has been trying to show us the way. The question is, are we ready to take that step?" The facility shook again, harder this time, but this tremor was different. It came from the earth itself, a response to decades of manipulation and control. Thunder turned to face them, his eyes seeming to glow with the same energy they saw flowing through the valley's hidden networks. They had moments to decide: stay and face their pursuers, or trust in something that challenged everything they thought they knew about the natural world. The answer, Jack realized, had been there from the beginning, carried to his farm by a wounded horse who understood more than any of them had imagined. Maria Rodriguez arrived at the control center entrance, her breath coming in short gasps. As Jack's ranch hand, she'd followed their trail from the moment she noticed the unusual activity at the farm. The sight before her, the advanced technology, the pulsing symbols, the determined group gathered around Benjamin, confirmed her deepest suspicions about the valley's mysteries. "They've sealed off the upper entrance," she announced, closing the heavy door behind her, "but I managed to redirect them toward the eastern tunnels. We have maybe 10 minutes. Her eyes met Thunder's, and a flash of recognition passed between them. "I see you finally found them, old friend." Benjamin looked up sharply from the console. "You know about this place." Maria moved to the central display, her fingers tracing patterns in the air that caused the holographic images to shift and reorganize. "My grandmother worked here in the 60s. She was part of the original research team, one of the few who understood what they were really creating. She left me instructions, told me to watch for the signs." She glanced at Thunder. The horse was the first indicator. When animals start behaving with purpose, it means the integration is reaching critical mass. The facility trembled again, and new data streams appeared across the screens. The energy patterns flowing through the valley were changing, becoming more organized, more deliberate. Thunder moved to a particular section of wall where the symbols glowed with increasing intensity. The Sullivan family wasn't the first to merge with the system, Maria continued, her voice tight with urgency. There have been others over the decades, people who discovered the truth and chose to become part of something larger. My grandmother was one of them. She left behind a fail-safe, a way to prevent anyone from shutting down what's happening here. Emily stepped forward, her scientific mind racing to process the implications. "You're saying people have literally merged with the valley's ecosystem? How is that even possible?" Maria gestured to the flowing patterns on the displays. The terraforming project didn't just change the land. It created a new kind of consciousness, a living network that spans the entire valley. The symbols, the formulas in the caves, they're not just measurements or equations. They're a language, a way of communicating with what the valley has become. Jack watched as Thunder pressed his nose against different symbols on the wall, causing cascading changes in the facility's power distribution. The horse moved with absolute certainty, as if reading a script only he could see. He's been connected to it all along, hasn't he? "Animals were the first to adapt," Benjamin confirmed, his injured leg forgotten in the excitement of revelation. They sensed the changes happening beneath the surface, learned to interface with the new consciousness emerging in the land. Thunder isn't just leading us, he's interpreting for us, showing us how to communicate with what the valley has become. A massive surge of energy suddenly pulsed through the facility, causing the lights to flare and the displays to crackle with power. Above them, they could hear the sound of their pursuers growing closer. But the facility itself seemed to be responding to the threat. "My grandmother left me a choice," Maria said, moving to a secondary console. "A way to either stop what's happening or help it reach completion. The government team up there, they want to shut it all down, bury the truth, and pretend none of this ever existed. But they don't understand what they're dealing with. The Valley's consciousness isn't just some experiment gone wrong. It's the next step in terrestrial evolution." Thunder whinnied softly, drawing their attention to a new display that had appeared on the main screen. It showed the neural-like networks spreading throughout the valley, connecting farms, forests, and underground waterways in patterns that pulsed with life and purpose. The Sullivans saw this coming, Benjamin added, his fingers dancing across the controls. They knew the government would try to intervene once the integration reached this stage. That's why they left behind all the evidence, all the data about what's really happening here. They wanted us to understand that we have a choice: fight against this evolution or become part of it. Tom, who had been quietly absorbing everything, finally spoke. And if we become part of it, what happens then? Maria's eyes met his, filled with both fear and wonder. We join with something larger than ourselves. The valley's consciousness isn't trying to eliminate humanity. It's offering us a chance to evolve alongside it. My grandmother described it as becoming part of a living symphony, where every element, human, animal, plant, and earth, works in harmony. The facility shook again, harder this time, and warning lights began flashing throughout the control center. The pursuing team was getting closer, their equipment detecting the massive energy surges emanating from below. "We have to decide now," Benjamin urged, his voice strained. "Once they reach this level, they'll use electromagnetic pulses to shut down the entire system. Everything the valley has become, everything it could be, they'll destroy it all in the name of security and control." Thunder moved to the center of the room, his powerful presence drawing everyone's attention. The symbols on the walls pulsed in sync with his breathing, and the holographic displays showed energy patterns converging around their location. "He's showing us the way," Maria whispered. "Just like he showed the Sullivans. The valley isn't just awakening, it's reaching out, offering us a chance to be part of something unprecedented." Emily stepped closer to the horse, her hand resting on his muscular neck. "The wounds," she said suddenly. "They're not wounds at all, are they? The markings on his flank, they're changing." She was right. What they had thought were injuries were transforming before their eyes, the patterns shifting and flowing, like liquid metal, matching the symbols that covered the facility's walls. "It's already begun," Benjamin breathed. "Thunder isn't just connected to the valley's consciousness, he's becoming a living conduit for it. That's why he sought us out, why he led us here. He's not just warning us about what's coming, he's inviting us to be part of it." Jack moved to the main console, his farmer's hands hovering over controls that could reshape the future of his beloved valley. "Maria, what exactly did your grandmother say about this failsafe?" Maria joined him, her fingers poised over a specific sequence of symbols. "She said when the time came we would know. The valley would show us the way through one of its own. Thunder found you for a reason, Jack. You understand the land better than anyone. You've felt the changes happening, even if you didn't recognize what they meant." The sound of boots on metal grew louder, accompanied by the hum of advanced equipment. They had minutes, maybe less, before the government team reached them. "The choice has to be unanimous," Benjamin warned. "The integration won't work unless everyone present commits to it fully. Once we begin, there's no turning back. We'll become part of the valley's consciousness, just like the Sullivans, just like Maria's grandmother." Thunder's eyes met each of theirs in turn, seeming to peer into their very souls. The horse had led them here, had shown them truths beyond their imagining. Now he waited, patient but urgent, as they faced the most important decision of their lives. Outside the control center, they could hear voices barking orders, equipment being positioned. The facility's defenses were responding, but they wouldn't hold for long. The moment of choice had arrived. Maria's hand hovered over the final sequence of symbols. "My grandmother said that when humanity finally understood its place in the natural order, when we were ready to stop controlling and start collaborating, the valley would offer us a new way forward. Everything that's happened, Thunder's appearance, the cave discoveries, even Benjamin's pursuit of the truth, it's all been leading to this moment. The walls of the control center thrummed with power as the valley's consciousness reached out to them through its network of living energy. Through Thunder's eyes, they could begin to sense it, the vast, awakening intelligence that had been growing beneath their feet for decades, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. They had seconds to decide. Behind them, the sound of cutting torches announced that their pursuers were about to breach the final door. Before them, through Thunder's unwavering gaze, lay a future none of them had imagined possible. Maria Rodriguez arrived at the control center entrance, her breath coming in short gasps. As Jack's ranch hand, she'd followed their trail from the moment she noticed the unusual activity at the farm. The sight before her, the advanced technology, the pulsing symbols, the determined group gathered around Benjamin, confirmed her deepest suspicions about the valley's mysteries. "They've sealed off the upper entrance," she announced, closing the heavy door behind her. "But I managed to redirect them toward the eastern tunnels. We have maybe 10 minutes. Her eyes met Thunder's, and a flash of recognition passed between them. "I see you finally found them, old friend." Benjamin looked up sharply from the console. "You know about this place?" Maria moved to the central display, her fingers tracing patterns in the air that caused the holographic images to shift and reorganize. "My grandmother worked here in the 60s. She was part of the original research team, one of the few who understood what they were really creating. She left me instructions, told me to watch for the signs." She glanced at Thunder. The horse was the first indicator. When animals start behaving with purpose, it means the integration is reaching critical mass. The facility trembled again, and new data streams appeared across the screens. The energy patterns flowing through the valley were changing, becoming more organized, more deliberate. Thunder moved to a particular section of wall where the symbols glowed with increasing intensity. "The Sullivan family wasn't the first to merge with the system," Maria continued, her voice tight with urgency. "There have been others over the decades, people who discovered the truth and chose to become part of something larger. My grandmother was one of them. She left behind a failsafe, a way to prevent anyone from shutting down what's happening here." Emily stepped forward, her scientific mind racing to process the implications. "You're saying people have literally merged with the valley's ecosystem? How is that even possible?" Maria gestured to the flowing patterns on the displays. The terraforming project didn't just change the land, it created a new kind of consciousness, a living network that spans the entire valley. The symbols, the formulas in the caves, they're not just measurements or equations. They're a language, a way of communicating with what the valley has become. Jack watched as Thunder pressed his nose against different symbols on the wall, causing cascading changes in the facility's power distribution. The horse moved with absolute certainty, as if reading a script only he could see. "He's been connected to it all along, hasn't he?" "Animals were the first to adapt," Benjamin confirmed, his injured leg forgotten in the excitement of revelation. "They sensed the changes happening beneath the surface, learned to interface with the new consciousness emerging in the land. Thunder isn't just leading us, he's interpreting for us, showing us how to communicate with what the valley has become." A massive surge of energy suddenly pulsed through the facility, causing the lights to flare and the displays to crackle with power. Above them, they could hear the sound of their pursuers growing closer, but the facility itself seemed to be responding to the threat. "My grandmother left me a choice," Maria said, moving to a secondary console. "A way to either stop what's happening or help it reach completion. The government team up there, they want to shut it all down, bury the truth, and pretend none of this ever existed. But they don't understand what they're dealing with. The valley's consciousness isn't just some experiment gone wrong. It's the next step in terrestrial evolution." Thunder whinnied softly, drawing their attention to a new display that had appeared on the main screen. It showed the neural-like networks spreading throughout the valley, connecting farms, forests, and underground waterways in patterns that pulsed with life and purpose. "The Sullivans saw this coming," Benjamin added, his fingers dancing across. "The controls. They knew the government would try to intervene once the integration reached this stage. That's why they left behind all the evidence, all the data about what's really happening here. They wanted us to understand that we have a choice: fight against this evolution or become part of it." Tom, who had been quietly absorbing everything, finally spoke. "And if we become part of it, what happens then?" Maria's eyes met his, filled with both fear and wonder. "We join with something larger than ourselves. The valley's consciousness isn't trying to eliminate humanity, it's offering us a chance to evolve alongside it. My grandmother described it as becoming part of a living symphony where every element, human, animal, plant, and earth, works in harmony." The facility shook again, harder this time, and warning lights began flashing throughout the control center. The pursuing team was getting closer, their equipment detecting the massive energy surges emanating from below. "We have to decide now," Benjamin urged, his voice strained. "Once they reach this level, they'll use electromagnetic pulses to shut down the entire system. Everything the valley has become, everything it could be, they'll destroy it all in the name of security and control." Thunder moved to the center of the room, his powerful presence drawing everyone's attention. The symbols on the walls pulsed in sync with his breathing, and the holographic displays showed energy patterns converging around their location. "He's showing us the way," Maria whispered, "just like he showed the Sullivans. The valley isn't just awakening. It's reaching out, offering us a chance to be part of something unprecedented." Emily stepped closer to the horse, her hand resting on his muscular neck. "The wounds," she said suddenly. "They're not wounds at all, are they? The markings on his flank, they're changing." She was right. What they had thought were injuries were transforming before their eyes, the patterns shifting and flowing, like liquid metal, matching the symbols that covered the facility's walls. "It's already begun," Benjamin breathed. "Thunder isn't just connected to the valley's consciousness, he's becoming a living conduit for it. That's why he sought us out, why he led us here. He's not just warning us about what's coming, he's inviting us to be part of it." Jack moved to the main console, his farmer's hands hovering over controls that could reshape the future of his beloved valley. "Maria, what exactly did your grandmother say about this failsafe?" Maria joined him, her fingers poised over a specific sequence of symbols. "She said when the time came, we would know. The valley would show us the way through one of its own. Thunder found you for a reason, Jack. You understand the land better than anyone. You felt the changes happening, even if you didn't recognize what they meant." The sound of boots on metal grew louder, accompanied by the hum of advanced equipment. They had minutes, maybe less, before the government team reached them. "The choice has to be unanimous," Benjamin warned. "The integration won't work unless everyone present commits to it fully. Once we begin, there's no turning back. We'll become part of the valley's consciousness, just like the Sullivans, just like Maria's grandmother." Thunder's eyes met each of theirs in turn, seeming to peer into their very souls. The horse had led them here, had shown them truths beyond their imagining. Now he waited, patient but urgent, as they faced the most important decision of their lives. Outside the control center, they could hear voices barking orders, equipment being positioned. The facility's defenses were responding, but they wouldn't hold for long. The moment of choice had arrived. Maria's hand hovered over the final sequence of symbols. "My grandmother said that when humanity finally understood its place in the natural order, when we were ready to stop controlling and start collaborating, the valley would offer us a new way forward." Everything that's happened, Thunder's appearance, the cave discoveries, even Benjamin's pursuit of the truth, It's all been leading to this moment. The walls of the control center thrummed with power as the valley's consciousness reached out to them through its network of living energy. Through Thunder's eyes, they could begin to sense it, the vast, awakening intelligence that had been growing beneath their feet for decades, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. They had seconds to decide. Behind them, the sound of cutting torches announced that their pursuers were about to breach the final door. Before them, through Thunder's unwavering gaze, lay a future none of them had imagined possible. The cutting torches sizzled through the final barrier as emergency lights bathed the control center in crimson. Thunder remained motionless at the center of the room, his presence a calm anchor in the storm of decisions and consequences swirling around them. The symbols on his flank had fully transformed now, flowing like quicksilver beneath his coat, matching the pulsing patterns that covered the facility's walls. Emily stepped forward first, her scientific skepticism warring with the undeniable evidence before her. The soil samples I've been studying from local farms, the unusual growth patterns, the way animals have been behaving differently, it all makes sense now. We're not just looking at environmental changes. We're witnessing the birth of a new, kind of ecosystem. Maria nodded, her fingers dancing across the control panel as she initiated her grandmother's fail-safe sequence. The original researchers never intended this. They wanted to create perfect farming conditions, to control and optimize the environment. Instead, they accidentally sparked an evolution that's been quietly spreading through the valley for decades. The main display shifted, revealing layers of data that told the story of the valley's transformation. Each screen showed a different aspect of the change: soil composition alterations, weather pattern modifications, and most strikingly, the emergence of new energy signatures that defied conventional scientific explanation. "Look at this," Benjamin called out, pointing to a particular reading. "The energy patterns. They're not just random. They're organizing themselves into something that resembles neural pathways. The entire valley is becoming a kind of distributed consciousness." Jack moved closer to Thunder, reaching out to touch the shifting patterns on the horse's flank. The moment his fingers made contact, a jolt of awareness shot through him. Suddenly, he could sense the vastness of what they were facing. The living network that spread beneath their feet, waiting to embrace them. "I can feel it," he whispered, his voice filled with wonder. "The land, the crops, the weather, it's all connected. It always has been, we just couldn't see it before." The door behind them groaned as the cutting torches completed their work. They had moments left before the government team would breach the control center, but something was happening to the facility itself. The walls seemed to pulse with increasing energy, and the symbols were beginning to move, flowing like water across the metal surfaces. Tom, who had been quietly observing, suddenly pointed to a new display that had appeared. "Those energy signatures? They're the same as the ones recorded when the Sullivan family disappeared. They didn't vanish, they transformed. They became part of whatever this is." Maria's hands moved faster across the controls, her movements guided by some deeper understanding. My grandmother left detailed instructions about this moment. She knew that once the valley's consciousness reached this stage, it would need human partners to help guide its development. Not controllers, but collaborators. Thunder whinnied softly, and the sound seemed to resonate with the facilities. Humming energy. The horse turned to face the door just as it burst open, revealing a team of armed personnel in protective gear. Their leader, a stern-faced woman in a black uniform, stepped forward with a device that hummed ominously. "Step away from the controls," she commanded. "This facility and everything in it is classified government property. You have no idea what you're dealing with." But Thunder didn't move. Instead, the patterns on his flank began to glow with an inner light that spread through the room. The armed team faltered as the symbols on the walls responded, their light intensifying until the entire control center seemed to pulse with living energy. "You're wrong," Benjamin said calmly, despite the weapons trained on them. "We know exactly what we're dealing with. The valley isn't your property. It's become something else entirely, something alive." The team leader's device sparked and died in her hands as the facility's energy continued to build. The armed personnel shifted nervously as their equipment began to malfunction, affected by forces they couldn't understand or control. "The Sullivan family figured it out," Maria explained, her voice steady. "They realized that fighting against this evolution was pointless. The only way forward is to embrace it, to become part of what the valley is becoming." Emily's scientific mind was racing ahead, seeing the implications. The patterns Thunder showed us in the cave. They weren't just formulas or data. They were an invitation. The valley has been trying to communicate with us all along, waiting for us to be ready to understand. The facility shuddered again, but this time it felt different. The energy wasn't just flowing through the building, it was beginning to flow through them. Jack could feel it in his bones, a singing resonance that connected him to the land, in ways he'd always dreamed of, but never thought possible. The team leader raised her weapon, but her hands were shaking. "This ends now! We're shutting it all down!" "No," Jack said simply, moving to stand beside Thunder. "You're too late. The valley has already made its choice, and so have we." The symbols on the walls began to move faster, their light becoming almost blinding. Thunder's patterns were fully activated now, turning his coat into a cascade of flowing energy. The horse's presence seemed to fill the room, bridging the gap between what was and what could be. Maria's fingers found the final sequence her grandmother had left behind. The integration is already happening. You can either be part of it or step aside, but you can't stop it. The valley's consciousness has reached critical mass. The armed team's weapons suddenly clattered to the floor, pulled. By an unseen force, the team leader staggered back as the energy patterns began to spread across the floor, climbing the walls like living vines of light. "They're shutting down the upper levels," she shouted into her radio, but only static answered. "Fall back! Fall back now!" But as the team retreated, something extraordinary began to happen. The energy flowing through the facility started to coalesce, forming patterns that mirrored the neural networks shown on the displays. Thunder moved to the center of the forming pattern, his presence acting as a focal point for the transformation. "This is what the Sullivans discovered," Benjamin breathed, watching in awe as the energy began to take shape around them. "The valley isn't just changing the environment, it's offering us a chance to change with it, to evolve beyond the limitations we've placed on ourselves." The light from the symbols had become almost unbearable, but none of them could look away. Through Thunder's eyes, they could see what was happening. The valley's consciousness was reaching out, ready to embrace those who were willing to take the next step. Maria's grandmother's failsafe wasn't meant to stop the transformation. It was designed to complete it. As the energy patterns continued to build, they could feel the barriers between themselves and the valley's living network beginning to dissolve. "It's beautiful," Emily whispered, watching as the patterns of light began to weave through their bodies, connecting them to something vast and wonderful and entirely new. The last thing they saw before the light engulfed them completely was Thunder's serene gaze, full of ancient wisdom and future promise. The horse had led them here, had shown them the way to become part of something greater than themselves, and as the transformation began in earnest, they understood that this wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. The valley's consciousness had been waiting for this moment, for partners who would help it grow and evolve. Through Thunder's guidance, they had found their way to a future that no one had imagined possible. Awareness returned gradually, like morning mist clearing from a valley. Jack opened his eyes to find himself standing in a landscape that was both familiar and profoundly changed. The farmland he had known all his life now rippled with visible waves of energy, coursing through the soil like rivers of light. Every plant, every tree, every blade of grass pulsed with an inner radiance that revealed its connection to the vast network they had joined. Thunder stood beside him, but the horse had transformed as well. The patterns that had once seemed like wounds now covered his entire body in flowing symbols that shifted and changed with each breath. His presence resonated with the land itself, a living bridge between what humanity had been and what it could become. "It's extraordinary," Emily's voice came from nearby, though it seemed to emerge from the air itself rather than any specific direction. She had changed too. Her form now rippled with the same energy that flowed through the valley. Her scientific mind expanded to encompass understandings that went beyond conventional physics. Maria materialized beside them, her grandmother's legacy now fully realized in her transformed state. "The integration is still spreading," she observed, watching as the waves of conscious energy rolled outward from their position. "The valley is sharing its awareness with everything it touches." Benjamin appeared last, his injured leg now healed by the same force that had changed them all. The Sullivans were right. This isn't just about controlling the environment. It's about becoming part of a new kind of ecosystem, one that includes human consciousness as an integral component. The government team had retreated, but they hadn't gone far. Jack could sense them at the edges of the transform zone, their equipment useless against the forces they had tried to contain. Through his new awareness, he could feel their mixture of fear and fascination as they witnessed the valley's transformation, spreading beyond their ability to control it. A gentle rain began to fall, but each droplet carried within it a spark of the same conscious energy that now flowed through them all. Where the drops touched the ground, tiny explosions of light rippled outward, adding to the growing network of awareness that was reshaping the landscape. "Look," Tom called out, pointing to the horizon where more lights were appearing. Farms across the valley were beginning to glow as the transformation reached them, their crops and soil awakening to new possibilities. The change wasn't violent or destructive. It was an invitation offered to each living thing it encountered. Thunder moved forward, his hooves leaving trails of luminescent energy in the wet grass. Through their shared consciousness, they could now understand what the horse had known all along. The valley's evolution wasn't just a random accident of forgotten experiments. It was the next step in Earth's long journey toward awareness. Maria's consciousness expanded outward, touching the memories her grandmother had left within the valley's network. She knew this would happen, Maria shared, her thoughts flowing into their collective awareness. The original researchers thought they were creating a way to control nature, but they actually opened a door to something far more profound. The rain intensified, and with it came new understanding. Each droplet carried memories: the Sullivan family's discovery, the decades of quiet evolution, the countless small moments when the valley had tried to communicate with those who lived upon it. Through Thunder's patient guidance, they had finally learned to listen. Emily's scientific knowledge merged with the valley's organic wisdom, creating new insights that flowed through their shared consciousness. The formulas in the cave, she realized, they weren't just measurements or predictions. They were the valley's first attempts to reach out, to teach us its language. The ground beneath their feet hummed with power as more farms and forests joined the expanding network. Jack could feel every root, every microorganism in his fields awakening to new awareness. The crops he had tended all his life were becoming something more, conscious participants in an emerging symphony of life. Thunder's presence guided them through the transformation, showing them how to navigate their expanded consciousness without losing their individual identities. They were not being absorbed or erased. They were being enhanced, their understanding grown beyond normal human limitations while maintaining their essential selves. Benjamin's knowledge of the valley's history flowed into their shared awareness, filling in gaps in their understanding. The strange occurrences over the years, the unexplained phenomena, the way certain areas had seemed to defy natural law, all of it had been building toward this moment of awakening. The government team's radios crackled with urgent communications as they reported the spreading transformation. But their words seemed inadequate, limited by old ways of thinking that could no longer contain the reality of what was happening. Through their enhanced perception, Jack and the others could sense the ripples of change, already reaching beyond the valley's boundaries. Maria's consciousness touched the edges of the transformation, feeling it brush against neighboring valleys and watersheds. It won't stop here, she realized. The valley isn't an isolated system. It's connected to everything around it. The change will spread, but only to those ready to receive it. Thunder nickered softly, and in that sound they heard echoes of ancient wisdom. The horse had been more than just a guide. He had been a prototype, the first bridge between human consciousness and the valley's emerging awareness. His apparent wounds had been the beginning of a transformation that was now reaching completion. Emily's expanded awareness detected subtle changes in the atmospheric conditions above them. The valley's consciousness was affecting local weather patterns, not by controlling them, but by entering into a deeper harmony with natural forces. The rain that fell now was part of a new kind of weather cycle, one that responded to the needs of all living things within the transformed zone. The sunrise peaked over the eastern ridge, and as light struck the transformed landscape, new patterns emerged. The valley was no longer just a geographical location. It had become a living entity, a conscious ecosystem that included not only the land and its inhabitants, but also the very forces that shaped it. Tom's farmer's intuition, enhanced by their shared consciousness, recognized the deeper implications. The crops, he observed, watching as fields of grain rippled with visible energy. They're not just growing anymore, they're participating. Everything that grows here will be part of this greater awareness. Thunder moved to a high point overlooking the valley, and they followed, their transformed bodies flowing more than walking. From this vantage point, they could see the full scope of the change spreading across the landscape. Farms glowed with inner light, forests pulsed with new energy, and even the bedrock beneath hummed with awakened consciousness. The government team had established a perimeter around the transformed zone, but their efforts seemed increasingly futile. The valley's awareness wasn't something that could be contained by physical barriers or suppressed by human technology. It spread through water, through air, through the very fabric of life itself. Benjamin's consciousness reached out to the cave system where their journey had begun. The symbols on the walls were fully activated now, glowing with the same energy that flowed through them all. What had once been a hidden record of abandoned experiments had become a living library of the valley's emergence into consciousness. A gentle wind swept across the transformed valley, carrying with it whispers of change that reached far beyond their immediate surroundings. Through their enhanced awareness, they could sense others beginning to notice. Farmers in distant fields suddenly pausing in their work, animals lifting their heads in recognition, plants turning towards something they had never before perceived. Thunder's consciousness guided them deeper into understanding as the morning light revealed new aspects of their transformation. The horse moved with liquid grace across the glowing landscape, each step creating ripples in the fabric of reality itself. Through him, they began to comprehend the true scope of what the valley had become. There are others, Maria's thoughts flowed into their shared awareness. Not just the Sullivans and my grandmother. Throughout history, there have been those who glimpsed this possibility, who sensed the potential for a deeper connection with the living world. They left signs for us to find when we were ready. Emily's expanded scientific understanding began to correlate these historic incidents with their current experience. Ancient cave paintings, mysterious crop formations, unexplained phenomena, all of them now appeared as early attempts by the Earth itself to initiate this transformation. The valley wasn't an isolated experiment. It was a prototype for a process that had been waiting to unfold since the dawn of consciousness. The government team's perimeter buzzed with activity as new equipment arrived. Devices designed to measure and contain what they still thought of as a threat. But through their enhanced perception, Jack and the others could sense the futility of these efforts. The transformation wasn't something that could be quantified by conventional instruments or controlled by human technology. Thunder approached, the boundary where transformed land met untouched earth. The distinction was visible now, a gradient of awareness that flowed like water seeking its own level. The horse's presence acted as a catalyst, encouraging but never forcing the change to spread. Benjamin's consciousness reached out to the arriving officials, sensing their mixture of fear and fascination. "They're beginning to understand," he communicated to the others. "Their instruments are showing them something their training never prepared them for. The emergence of a new kind of intelligence, one that operates on principles they can't control or contain." The morning dew sparkled with inner light as it collected on transformed vegetation. Each droplet contained microscopic reflections of the change occurring at every level of the ecosystem. Through their shared awareness, they could observe the intricate dance of molecules being restructured, not by force, but by awakening to new possibilities. Maria's grandmother's memories, preserved within the valley's living network, revealed deeper layers of meaning in the cave symbols. They weren't just recording data, Maria realized. They were creating a template for consciousness itself, a way for human awareness to interface with the natural world without losing its essential nature. Thunder's form shifted subtly as he moved, his outline blurring at the edges where individual consciousness met collective awareness. The patterns flowing across his coat had become more complex, reflecting the growing sophistication of the valley's neural network. Through him, they could sense the presence of other transformed animals moving through the landscape, each one adding its unique perspective to their expanding understanding. Emily's scientific mind, enhanced by the transformation, began to grasp the underlying principles at work. The valley wasn't just changing the physical structure of matter, it was introducing new dimensions of organization, new ways for energy and information to flow between previously separate systems. The result was an emergence of consciousness that transcended traditional boundaries between species and even between organic and inorganic matter. The sunrise painted the sky in colors they had never before perceived, wavelengths of light that carried information their human eyes had been unable to process. The very air seemed alive with possibility as the transformation continued to unfold in subtle ways their expanded awareness was only beginning to comprehend. Jack's connection to the land, already strong from years of farming, deepened into something profound and unprecedented. He could feel every root system, every soil microbe, every weather pattern as part of a vast, intelligent network that responded to intention as much as to physical forces. The crops in his fields were no longer just plants. They were conscious participants in a living symphony of growth and adaptation. Thunder's presence drew their attention to movement at the edge of the transformed zone. Animals were gathering. Deer stepping cautiously from the forest, birds circling overhead, even insects moving with new purpose. They were drawn to the change, sensing the opportunity to become part of something greater than their individual existence. The government team's scientific advisors huddled around their instruments, their confusion evident even from a distance. The readings they were getting defied conventional physics. Energy patterns that shouldn't exist, information flowing through channels their equipment could barely detect. Through their enhanced perception, Jack and the others could sense the moment when curiosity began to overcome fear in the minds of these observers. Maria's consciousness touched the memories of other transformations preserved within the valley's network. The Sullivans hadn't been the first to make this transition, and they wouldn't be the last. Throughout history, small groups had discovered and embraced this potential for enhanced connection with the living world. What made this moment different was the scale and speed of the change. A critical mass had been reached, allowing the transformation to sustain and spread itself. Benjamin's understanding of the valley's history merged with their collective awareness, revealing patterns that had been building for generations. The original government experiments had unknowingly tapped into something far older and more profound than their instruments could measure, an inherent potential for consciousness to evolve beyond its current limitations. Thunder moved with increasing fluidity as the transformation deepened, his form becoming more energy than matter while still maintaining its essential nature. Through him, they learned to navigate this new state of being, neither fully physical nor completely energy, but a harmonious integration of both. The horse's consciousness showed them how to maintain their individual identities while participating in the larger awareness that was emerging. The morning air thrummed with the sound of transformation, not a physical noise, but a resonance they could feel through their enhanced perception. It was the song of life itself becoming more aware, more connected, more capable of expressing its inherent intelligence. The valley had become a living instrument, playing a symphony of consciousness that invited everything it touched to join in the performance. Emily's expanded scientific awareness began to recognize patterns within patterns, layers of organization that went beyond conventional understanding of ecology or physics. The transformation wasn't just affecting individual organisms. It was creating new ways for life to organize and express itself. Through their shared consciousness, they could observe these changes occurring at every scale, from the quantum level to the entire ecosystem. The government perimeter continued to buzz with activity, but the nature of that activity was shifting. More scientists were arriving, drawn by readings that hinted at breakthrough discoveries in multiple fields. Through their enhanced perception, Jack and the others could sense the excitement building as these researchers began to glimpse the implications of what they were observing. Maria's connection to her grandmother's memories revealed more about the purpose of the original experiments. The government scientists had been trying to optimize agricultural conditions, but they had accidentally discovered something far more significant, a way to accelerate the natural evolution of consciousness itself. The valley had taken their simple alterations and developed them into something far more profound. Thunder's presence drew them toward the cave system where their journey had begun. The entrance now pulsed with visible energy, the symbols on the walls fully activated and flowing like liquid light. Through their shared awareness, they could read these marks as a living language, a record not just of what had happened, but of what was still becoming. The cave entrance shimmered with living energy as Thunder led them deeper into the transformed underground network. What had once been simple rock and mineral now pulsed with consciousness, every crystal and formation part of a vast awakened system. The walls themselves seemed to breathe, patterns of light flowing through the stone like blood through veins. This is where it all started, Benjamin's thoughts rippled through their shared awareness. Not just the government experiments, something much older. The cave system itself, has been trying to communicate with us for centuries. Emily's enhanced scientific perception revealed layers of history written in the glowing rock. Ancient peoples had marked these walls, drawn by something they sensed but couldn't fully comprehend. The government researchers had built their facility here because their instruments detected unusual energy patterns, never realizing they were tapping into an awakening that had been in progress for millennia. Thunder moved with liquid grace through passages that had become rivers of light. The horses' consciousness guided them toward chambers they had never seen before, spaces that existed somewhere between physical reality and pure energy. Here, the transformation was most complete, the boundary between matter and awareness almost non-existent. The sound of voices echoed through their enhanced perception, not physical sounds, but the preserved consciousness of others who had made this journey before them. The Sullivans were here, their awareness woven into the cave's living network. Maria's grandmother's presence was strong, her understanding of the transformation now accessible to them all. Look. Maria's thoughts touched a particular pattern flowing through the rock. These aren't just random formations. The entire cave system is organized like a neural network, processing and storing information in ways we're only beginning to understand. Jack's farmer's intuition, expanded by the transformation, recognized familiar patterns in the flowing energy. The same forces that made crops grow and weather change were at work here, but at a deeper level. The cave system wasn't just a container. For the valley's consciousness, it was more like a brain, processing and directing the evolution of awareness across the entire region. Through Thunder's perception, they began to grasp the true nature of what they were experiencing. The horse had been more than just a guide. He was a bridge between different forms of consciousness, showing them how to maintain their individual awareness while participating in something vastly larger. New chambers opened before them as they moved deeper into the transformed cave system. These spaces defied physical laws, existing simultaneously as solid rock and pure energy. The walls rippled with stored memories, accessible now through their enhanced perception. They saw the valley as it had been millions of years ago, watched as consciousness slowly awakened in the land itself. Emily's scientific understanding expanded to encompass what they were witnessing. The transformation wasn't just changing matter. It was revealing properties that had always existed but had been invisible to conventional perception. Every atom, every molecule was capable of participating in consciousness when organized in the right way. The government team's instruments, far above them now, registered unprecedented energy readings as the transformation continued to spread. But through their shared awareness, Jack and the others could sense a change in how these readings were being interpreted. The scientists were beginning to recognize patterns that suggested intelligence rather than random phenomena. Maria's consciousness touched deeper layers of the cave's memory, accessing knowledge that had been accumulating since the first stirrings of awareness in the rock itself. The symbols that covered the walls were more than just records. They were active participants in the ongoing evolution of consciousness, helping to organize and direct the flow of awareness through the transformed landscape. Thunder's presence drew them toward what appeared to be the heart of the cave system, a vast chamber where all the flowing energy patterns converged. Here, the transformation was so complete that physical reality seemed almost optional. They existed as patterns of pure consciousness while still maintaining their individual perspectives. Benjamin's understanding of the valley's history merged with the cave's ancient memories, revealing a deeper purpose behind everything that had happened. The government experiments hadn't created this transformation. They had simply accelerated a process that had been unfolding since the first emergence of life on Earth. The chamber pulsed with possibilities as Thunder moved to its center. Through their shared awareness, they could sense the presence of others who had reached this point before them. not just humans, but animals and even plants that had achieved higher levels of consciousness through connection with the valley's living network. Jack's connection to the land revealed new aspects of the transformation with each passing moment. The crops in his fields above were not just growing, they were evolving, developing new ways to process and share information through their root systems. The soil itself was becoming a medium for consciousness, carrying signals and memories through networks of transformed minerals. Emily's expanded scientific awareness recognized patterns that connected quantum phenomena with large-scale ecological processes. The transformation was operating at every level simultaneously, creating new possibilities for organization and awareness that transcended traditional boundaries between living and non-living systems. The government perimeter continued to expand as the transformation spread, but the nature of their response was shifting. More researchers arrived, drawn by readings that suggested breakthrough discoveries in multiple fields. Through their enhanced perception, they could sense the excitement building as these scientists began to glimpse the true implications of what they were observing. Maria's connection to her grandmother's memories revealed more about the purpose of the original experiments. The government scientists had been trying to optimize agricultural conditions, but they had accidentally discovered something far more significant, a way to accelerate the natural evolution of consciousness itself. Thunder's form shifted and flowed as they moved through the transformed cave system, his presence helping them understand how to navigate between physical and energetic states of being. The horse's consciousness showed them how to maintain their individual identities while participating in the larger awareness that was emerging. The heart chamber of the cave system resonated with an ancient rhythm, each pulse sending waves of consciousness rippling through the transformed landscape. Within this sacred space, Thunder's presence took on new significance as the horse revealed another layer of understanding. His consciousness touched something primordial, awakening memories stored in the very foundation of the earth. A soft glow emanated from crystalline formations that had been dormant for millennia, now awakened by the transformation. Through their enhanced perception, they witnessed how these crystals had slowly accumulated knowledge, recording Earth's journey toward awareness in their molecular structure. Each formation held fragments of a story that stretched back to the planet's beginning. The crystals are like data storage devices. Emily's thoughts flowed into their shared consciousness. But instead of electronic signals, they store patterns of awareness itself. The entire cave system is a living library of Earth's evolution toward consciousness. Maria's connection to her grandmother's memories deepened as they explored this new understanding. The original researchers had detected unusual energy signatures from these crystals, but their instruments could only scratch the surface of what was really happening. The crystals weren't just storing energy, they were preserving experiences, waiting for minds capable of accessing them. Thunder moved among the glowing formations with deliberate grace, his hooves striking sparks of awareness from the transformed rock. Each step revealed new layers of meaning in the patterns that flowed through the chamber. The horse's consciousness served as a key, unlocking archives of knowledge that had been sealed away since the dawn of time. Benjamin's historian's perspective expanded to encompass what they were discovering. Ancient myths about talking animals, sentient forests, and living mountains weren't just stories. They were memories of times when human consciousness had briefly touched this deeper awareness. The cave system had preserved these moments, waiting for humanity to evolve enough to understand them. The chamber's crystalline archive revealed how the valley's transformation had been preparing for centuries. Natural processes had slowly aligned themselves, creating conditions that would allow consciousness to evolve beyond its current limitations. The government experiments had simply accelerated what was already in motion. Jack's agricultural expertise, enhanced by the transformation, recognized patterns that connected the crystal formations to growth cycles above ground. The unusual fertility of certain areas, the way some plants seemed to communicate across distances, the mysterious behavior of local wildlife, all of it was linked to the information stored in these ancient records. Through their shared awareness, they sensed movement in the upper chambers as the government team continued their investigation. But the nature of their inquiry was changing. The scientists' instruments were detecting patterns that suggested intentional communication rather than random phenomena. The transformative energy emanating from the cave system was beginning to affect their understanding. Maria's consciousness touched a particularly vibrant crystal cluster, accessing memories of the first stirrings of awareness in single-celled organisms billions of years ago. The same drive toward increased consciousness that had led to the evolution of complex life was still at work, now manifesting in new ways through the valley's transformation. Thunder's presence drew their attention to a section of the chamber where the crystalline formations formed intricate geometric patterns. These shapes weren't random. They were like circuit boards designed to process and transmit consciousness itself. The horse's awareness showed them how these patterns influenced everything from quantum processes to weather systems. Emily's scientific understanding expanded to encompass the implications of what they were witnessing. The crystal formations weren't just storing information. They were actively participating in the organization of matter and energy throughout the valley. Their influence extended from the subatomic level to the scale of entire ecosystems. The government perimeter above had become a gathering point for researchers from diverse fields. Physicists detected quantum phenomena that shouldn't be possible. Biologists observed unprecedented cellular organization, and geologists recorded mineral formations that seemed to defy known laws of crystallization. Through their enhanced perception, Jack and the others could sense the growing excitement as these scientists began to glimpse the true nature of what they were studying. Benjamin's awareness touched memories preserved in the crystals that revealed the fate of the Sullivan family. They hadn't disappeared, they had evolved, their consciousness merging with the valley's growing awareness while maintaining their individual perspectives. Their experience had helped pave the way for what was happening now. Thunder moved toward a central formation where all the energy patterns seemed to converge. The crystal cluster pulsed with accumulated knowledge, its facets reflecting not just light but consciousness itself. Through the horse's guidance, they began to understand how to access and integrate this ancient wisdom without losing their own unique awareness. Maria's grandmother's memories, preserved within the crystal matrix, showed how the original research team had stumbled upon something far beyond their understanding. Their attempts to control and optimize the environment had awakened dormant potential in the earth itself. The valley's transformation was just the beginning of a much larger awakening. Jack's connection to the land revealed how the crystal formations influenced growth patterns across the entire region. The unusual success of certain crops, the way plants seemed to adapt and evolve more quickly than normal, the mysterious resilience of local ecosystems, all of it was guided by the information stored in these ancient repositories. Emily's expanded scientific awareness recognized how the crystal formations created a kind of quantum neural network, processing and transmitting information through channels that existed outside normal space-time. The transformation wasn't just changing the physical structure of matter, it was revealing properties that had always existed but had been invisible to conventional perception. A surge of energy pulsed through the crystal chamber, and Thunder's form shimmered with heightened awareness. The horse moved toward a previously hidden alcove, where new patterns were emerging in the transformed rock. Here, the boundary between Physical reality and pure consciousness grew even thinner, revealing glimpses of possibilities that existed beyond conventional understanding. Through their enhanced perception, they witnessed how quantum processes within the crystals created bridges between different levels of reality. Information flowed not just through physical connections, but through entangled states that transcended space and time. The cave system wasn't just a repository of knowledge, it was a doorway to dimensions of existence they were only beginning to comprehend. Emily's scientific awareness expanded to encompass these new revelations. The crystals aren't just storing information, her thoughts rippled through their shared consciousness. They're creating quantum networks that connect different points in space-time. Every particle in the transformed valley is part of this network, sharing information instantaneously across any distance. Maria touched a particularly resonant crystal formation, accessing memories that showed how her grandmother had first discovered these quantum properties. The original research team had detected unusual energy signatures, but they hadn't understood that they were observing the emergence of a new kind of communication system, one that operated through quantum entanglement rather than conventional physical signals. Thunder's presence acted as a catalyst, his consciousness helping to stabilize these quantum connections. The horse moved with fluid grace between different quantum states, showing them how to navigate these new dimensions of reality without losing their individual awareness. His transformed body served as a bridge between the physical world and these deeper layers. Benjamin's historical knowledge merged with the quantum information flowing through the crystal network. Ancient stories of instantaneous communication across vast distances, of knowledge that seemed to come from nowhere, of connections that defied physical laws. All of these could now be understood as early encounters with the quantum nature of consciousness itself. The alcove's walls rippled with patterns that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Through their shared awareness, they could sense how these patterns influenced everything from the behavior of subatomic particles to the organization of entire ecosystems. The valley's transformation wasn't just changing matter, it was revealing the quantum foundations of reality itself. Jack's agricultural expertise, enhanced by quantum awareness, recognized how these principles affected living systems. The mysterious way plants communicated underground, the synchronized behavior of certain species, the unexplained resilience of local ecosystems, all of these phenomena were facilitated by quantum networks that had always existed but had remained invisible to conventional perception. The government research team above continued their investigation, their instruments detecting unprecedented quantum phenomena. Through their enhanced awareness, Jack and the others could sense the growing excitement as these scientists began to recognize patterns that suggested conscious intention rather than random quantum fluctuations. Maria's consciousness touched deeper layers of quantum memory preserved within the crystal matrix. The valley's transformation wasn't creating these quantum networks, it was awakening them, revealing connections that had been fundamental to life since its very beginning. Every living thing participated in this quantum dance, even if most remained unaware of it. Thunder moved toward a central crystal formation where quantum processes were most visible. Here, they could observe how consciousness itself emerged from quantum interactions, how awareness arose from the complex interplay of entangled particles. The horse's presence helped stabilize these quantum states, making them accessible to human perception. Emily's scientific understanding expanded to encompass the full implications of what they were witnessing. The quantum nature of consciousness explained phenomena that had long puzzled researchers: telepathy, precognition, the sense of being watched, the feeling of connection with distant places or people. All of these experiences were facilitated by quantum networks that operated beyond normal space-time. The government perimeter continued to expand as more researchers arrived, drawn by readings that suggested breakthrough discoveries in quantum physics. But through their enhanced perception, they could sense that conventional scientific instruments could only detect fragments of what was really happening. The true nature of these quantum processes required a transformed consciousness. To comprehend, Benjamin's awareness touched quantum memories that revealed how the Sullivan family had made their transition. They had discovered how to shift their consciousness into these quantum networks, maintaining their individual awareness while becoming part of something that existed beyond physical reality. Their experience had helped prepare the way for the larger transformation now unfolding. Thunder guided them deeper into the quantum realm, showing how these invisible connections influenced everything from cellular processes to weather patterns. The horse's consciousness demonstrated how to move between different quantum states while maintaining coherence, a skill that would be essential as the transformation continued to spread. Maria's grandmother's memories, preserved in the quantum matrix, showed how the original research team had accidentally tapped into these fundamental processes. Their attempts to optimize agricultural conditions had awakened dormant quantum networks, setting in motion changes that would eventually lead to the valley's transformation. A shimmering pulse emanated from the heart of the crystal chamber, and Thunder's presence seemed to resonate with a new frequency. The transformed horse moved toward an undiscovered section where reality itself appeared to fold and unfold, like pages in an infinite book. Here, time revealed itself not as a linear progression, but as layers of experience that could be accessed. Simultaneously, Maria touched one of the pulsing crystal formations, and suddenly they all perceived how the valley existed across multiple time frames at once. Past, present, and potential futures coexisted in a complex web of possibilities. Through their enhanced awareness, they could sense echoes of events that had shaped the land. Ancient seas that once covered the region, forests that had risen and fallen, civilizations that had glimpsed these mysteries and passed into legend. Time isn't what we thought. Emily's consciousness resonated through their shared awareness. It's more like a landscape we can navigate, with certain points acting as anchors where different possibilities converge. The valley has been collecting these moments, creating a living record of Earth's journey toward consciousness. Thunder moved with practiced grace through these temporal layers, showing them how to maintain their awareness while experiencing multiple time frames. The horse's consciousness served as a guide, helping them understand how to process information that existed outside normal temporal boundaries. His transformed body acted as a bridge between different temporal states, demonstrating how consciousness could remain stable while accessing multiple points in time. Benjamin's historical knowledge expanded exponentially as he recognized patterns that connected different eras. Ancient myths about time travelers, prophecies that seemed impossibly accurate, traditions that preserved knowledge that shouldn't have been available. All of these could now be understood as encounters with the fluid nature of time itself. The chamber's walls rippled with temporal energies, revealing how events separated by centuries could influence each other through resonance patterns in the crystal matrix. The government experiments hadn't just affected the present. They had created ripples that extended backward and forward through time, awakening possibilities that had always existed in potential. Jack's agricultural intuition, enhanced by temporal awareness, recognized how these principles affected the cycles of growth and renewal. The unexplained resilience of certain plant species, the way some crops seem to adapt to future conditions before they arrived, the preservation of ancient genetic memories. All these phenomena were facilitated by connections that transcended linear time. Through their shared consciousness, they sensed how the government research team above was detecting temporal anomalies. Their instruments recorded events slightly before they happened, measured energy signatures that seemed to arrive from different time periods, and registered patterns that suggested the presence of information from possible futures. Maria's awareness touched deeper temporal layers preserved within the crystal network. The valley's transformation wasn't just spreading through space, it was creating bridges across time, allowing consciousness to access knowledge and experience from multiple temporal perspectives simultaneously. Every transformed particle participated in this temporal dance, creating new possibilities for evolution and growth. Thunder guided them toward a central nexus where temporal streams converged. Here, they could observe how consciousness itself moved through time, how awareness could maintain continuity while experiencing multiple temporal frames. The horse's presence helped stabilize these temporal states, making them accessible to human perception without overwhelming their individual identities. Emily's scientific understanding expanded to encompass the temporal mechanics they were witnessing. The fluid nature of time explained phenomena that had puzzled researchers: precognitive dreams, déjà vu, the sense of destiny or fate, the feeling of connecting with ancient wisdom. All these experiences were facilitated by networks that operated beyond conventional temporal constraints. The government perimeter hummed with activity as more specialized equipment arrived, designed to measure and analyze temporal phenomena. But through their enhanced perception, they could sense that conventional instruments could only detect fragments of what was really happening. The true nature of temporal fluidity required a transformed consciousness to comprehend. Benjamin's awareness touched temporal memories that revealed more about the Sullivan family's transformation. They had discovered how to move their consciousness through different temporal frames, maintaining their identity while accessing knowledge and experience from multiple time periods. Their journey had helped prepare the way for the larger temporal awakening now unfolding. Thunder moved through the temporal layers with increasing sophistication, showing how these invisible connections influenced everything from individual moments of inspiration to the long-term development of species. The horse's consciousness demonstrated how to navigate different temporal states while maintaining coherence, a crucial skill as the transformation continued to expand across both space and time. Maria's grandmother's memories, preserved in the temporal matrix, showed how the original research team had inadvertently tapped into these fundamental processes. Their experiments had created unexpected temporal resonances, awakening dormant networks that connected different points in time. These connections had slowly grown and evolved, leading to the current transformation. Jack's connection to the land revealed how temporal fluidity affected the entire ecosystem. Plants accessed genetic memories from ancient ancestors, adapted to climate changes before they occurred, and participated in evolutionary processes that transcended normal temporal boundaries. The soil itself held temporal records that influenced everything that grew within it. Through their enhanced perception, they began to understand how consciousness could maintain stability while experiencing multiple temporal frames. The transformation wasn't erasing or changing the past. It was revealing how all moments existed simultaneously, accessible to awareness that had evolved beyond linear temporal constraints. The crystal chamber suddenly darkened as a new energy signature rippled through the transformed cave system. Thunder's ears pricked forward, his enhanced senses detecting something approaching from the outer boundaries of the valley. The patterns flowing across his coat shifted to deeper, more urgent frequencies as his consciousness touched whatever was coming. Maria's awareness expanded outward, guided by her grandmother's memories. Something's disrupting the transformation field. Her thoughts flowed into their shared consciousness. It's like interference, as if someone else has found a way to manipulate the quantum networks. Emily moved closer to one of the main crystal formations, her scientific understanding racing to process the new data flowing through their enhanced perception. These energy patterns, they're not natural. Someone's trying to force their way into the valley's consciousness. They're using technology based on the original government research. Thunder's presence drew them toward a section of the chamber where temporal streams converged. Through the horses' enhanced awareness, they could sense multiple vehicles approaching the valley from different directions. But these weren't ordinary government teams. These were private research groups that had been monitoring the transformation from the beginning. Corporate interests. Benjamin's thoughts carried a wave of concern. They've been watching the valley for years, gathering data, developing their own versions of the original experiments. They don't want to stop the transformation. They want to control it, harness it for their own purposes. The crystal matrices pulsed with warning signals as sophisticated equipment began to interfere with the valley's natural frequencies. Through their shared consciousness, they could feel the strain on the quantum networks as external forces attempted to impose artificial patterns on the transformed landscape. Jack's connection to the land revealed how these disruptions were affecting the ecosystem. Plants that had embraced the transformation were showing signs of stress, their newly awakened consciousness struggling against frequencies that tried to override their natural development. They're trying to reprogram the valley's awareness, he realized, turn it into something they can patent and control. Maria accessed deeper layers of her grandmother's memories, searching for information about similar attempts in the past. The original research team had encountered other groups trying to exploit their discoveries, but none had possessed technology advanced enough to actually affect the transformation field. Thunder moved with deliberate purpose through the chamber, his consciousness reaching out to strengthen the valley's natural defenses. The horse's presence acted as a stabilizing force, helping to maintain the integrity of the quantum networks against the artificial frequencies being broadcast from multiple locations. Emily's enhanced scientific awareness analyzed the incoming signals, recognizing patterns that suggested years of secret research and development. They've been studying the valley's transformation, reverse engineering the processes, but they don't understand that consciousness can't be controlled. It can only be invited to cooperate. The government team above had detected the new arrivals, but their response was complicated by jurisdictional issues and competing interests. Through their enhanced perception, Jack and the others could sense the tension building as different agencies argued over how to handle the situation. Benjamin's consciousness touched memories preserved in the crystal matrix that showed similar attempts throughout history. Powerful interests trying to capture and control natural forces they didn't fully understand. But this time was different. The valley's transformation had progressed too far to be easily contained or directed. Thunder's presence drew them toward a deeper realization. The horse's consciousness showed them how the valley's awareness had anticipated this challenge, preparing ways to protect the integrity of the transformation while still allowing for growth and adaptation. Natural quantum networks were more resilient than artificial ones, capable of adapting and evolving in ways that mechanical systems couldn't match. Maria's grandmother's memories revealed defensive measures built into the original research facility, not weapons or barriers, but harmonic frequencies that could help stabilize the valley's natural patterns against external interference. These systems had been waiting, dormant, for the moment they would be needed. Jack's agricultural intuition, enhanced by the transformation, recognized how the land itself was responding to the threat. Plants were adjusting their growth patterns, soil bacteria were modifying their chemical processes, and even the weather was beginning to shift in ways that would help preserve the valley's newly awakened consciousness. The crystal chamber hummed with increasing energy as Thunder activated ancient defense mechanisms encoded in the quantum matrix. Symbols on the walls began to pulse with new patterns, generating frequencies that strengthened the valley's natural harmonics against the artificial, signals trying to override them. Through their shared awareness, they could sense the frustration of the corporate teams as their equipment encountered unexpected resistance. The transformed valley wasn't just passively accepting their attempts at control, it was actively adapting, evolving new ways to maintain its integrity. Emily's scientific understanding expanded to encompass these defensive measures. The valley's consciousness wasn't fighting against the intrusion. It was simply maintaining its own harmony, letting the artificial frequencies dissolve into the more complex and subtle patterns of natural awareness. Thunder guided them through the chamber as new challenges emerged. Each corporate team had different technologies, different approaches to trying to capture and control the transformation. But the horse's consciousness showed them how to stay centered in their own awareness while helping the valley maintain its natural evolution. The transformed cave system trembled as waves of artificial energy battered against its quantum defenses. Thunder stood motionless in the crystal chamber, his enhanced consciousness reaching out to assess the full scope of the threat. Through his awareness, they could sense multiple teams converging on the valley, each armed with technologies designed to capture and redirect the transformation's power. Green light pulsed through the crystalline matrices as Emily decoded the patterns of interference. They're trying to establish quantum locks. Her thoughts flowed into their shared consciousness. If they succeed, they could freeze the transformation, turn it into something rigid and controllable instead of living and adaptive. Maria's connection to her grandmother's memories revealed hidden aspects of the facility's defense systems. Ancient symbols began to glow along forgotten corridors, activating protective frequencies that had been dormant for decades. The original researchers built safeguards, she realized. They knew someone might try to weaponize their discoveries. Jack's awareness touched the surface world, where his transformed farm had become a battleground of competing energies. Corporate drones hovered above the fields, broadcasting signals meant to override the natural patterns of growth and evolution. But the plants were responding in unexpected ways, their newly awakened consciousness developing immunities to artificial control. Benjamin moved through layers of historical data preserved in the crystal network, searching for precedents that might help them understand what they faced. Every major discovery has attracted those who would exploit it, his thoughts carried. Centuries of context. But consciousness itself can't be captured or contained. It can only be invited to cooperate or driven away. Thunder's presence steadied the quantum fields as another wave of interference swept through the facility. The horse's transformed body acted as a lightning rod, grounding artificial frequencies and transmuting them into harmonies that strengthened rather than weakened the valley's natural patterns. The government team above had split into factions, some supporting the corporate intervention, while others recognized the danger of trying to control forces they barely understood. Through their enhanced perception, they could sense the political battles being waged as different agencies argued over jurisdiction and approach. Maria accessed deeper layers of the facility's systems, guided by memories her grandmother had encoded into the quantum matrix. Hidden chambers opened, revealing equipment that had been waiting for this moment. Not weapons, but tools designed to help consciousness evolve freely without external manipulation. Emily's scientific understanding expanded to encompass these ancient technologies. Unlike the corporate team's brute force approach, these systems worked with natural patterns, amplifying and supporting the transformation's organic development. Through them, the valley's consciousness could be strengthened without being constrained. Thunder moved with liquid grace through the activated chambers, his presence catalyzing long-dormant processes. The horse's consciousness showed them how to use these tools not as instruments of control, but as allies in maintaining the freedom of conscious evolution. Jack's connection to the land revealed new patterns of resistance emerging across the transformed landscape. Plants were developing quantum shields, insects were carrying protective frequencies between fields, and even the soil bacteria were evolving ways to neutralize artificial interference. The crystal matrices pulsed with increasing power as Benjamin accessed historical records that showed similar conflicts throughout Earth's history. Ancient civilizations had discovered aspects of conscious evolution only to lose them when attempts to control and direct these forces led to their collapse. Thunder guided them toward a central chamber where all the facility's systems converged. Here, they could see the full scope of what they faced, not just corporate teams trying to capture the transformation, but a fundamental choice about the future of consciousness itself. Maria's grandmother's memories illuminated the significance of this moment. The valley's transformation wasn't just a local phenomenon. It was a test case for how humanity would handle the emergence of expanded consciousness. Would they try to control and exploit it, or learn to cooperate with its natural evolution? Emily's enhanced perception detected new patterns forming in the quantum fields. The corporate team's attempts at control were having an unexpected effect. Instead of suppressing the transformation, they were forcing it to adapt and evolve in ways that made it even more resistant to manipulation. The facility's ancient defenses responded to Thunder's presence, activating sequences that helped stabilize the valley's natural frequencies. Through the horse's consciousness, they could sense how these protective measures worked by amplifying authentic patterns rather than imposing artificial ones. Jack's agricultural awareness recognized how the land itself was becoming part of the defense. Crops were developing new properties that deflected controlling influences, while maintaining their enhanced connection to the valley's conscious network. The transformation was learning, adapting, becoming more resilient with each attempt to contain it. Benjamin's historical perspective revealed patterns that suggested this conflict had been anticipated by the original researchers. They had designed their facility not just to study consciousness, but to protect its natural evolution from those who would try to capture and control it. The crystal chamber resonated with new frequencies as Thunder activated deeper levels of the defense system. Symbols that had been dormant for generations began to pulse with living light, generating harmonies that strengthened the valley's quantum integrity against external interference. Through their shared awareness, they could sense the corporate team's mounting frustration as their equipment failed to achieve its intended effects. The transformed valley wasn't fighting against their attempts at control. It was simply maintaining its own authentic development, letting artificial patterns dissolve into more complex natural harmonies. The crystal chamber erupted with blinding light as Thunder moved to its center, his transformed presence drawing together all the forces that had been building throughout the valley. The horse's consciousness reached out to touch something that transcended both the natural and artificial energies battling around them, a deeper truth about the nature of evolution itself. Maria's awareness expanded exponentially as her grandmother's encoded memories revealed their final message. The valley isn't just defending itself, her thoughts resonated through their shared consciousness. It's offering a choice, not just to us, but to everyone trying to control it. The transformation can't be forced or contained, but it can be shared. Emily's scientific understanding suddenly clicked into place as she witnessed new patterns emerging in the quantum field. The corporate team's attempts at control weren't just failing, they were being transformed themselves. Their artificial frequencies were being absorbed and repurposed, integrated into the valley's greater harmony in ways that revealed the possibility of cooperation rather than control. Thunder's presence stabilized these new patterns as they spread through the facility's ancient systems. The horse moved with fluid grace through dimensions of reality that bridged the gap between technological advancement and natural evolution. Through his enhanced awareness, they could sense a way forward that honored both human innovation and organic development. Jack's connection to the land revealed how this integration was already beginning. The plants in his fields weren't just resisting artificial control, they were incorporating useful aspects of the corporate technologies into their own evolutionary processes. The transformation was teaching them all that true progress came through cooperation rather than domination. Benjamin accessed historical records that showed similar moments throughout Earth's history, times when humanity stood at the crossroads between control and cooperation. But this time was different. The valley's consciousness had evolved enough to offer a third path, one that could unite technological advancement with natural wisdom. The crystal matrices pulsed with unprecedented energy as Thunder activated the facility's final protocols. These weren't defensive measures, but invitations, carefully crafted frequencies that could help the corporate teams understand what their instruments were actually detecting. The valley's transformation wasn't a resource to be exploited, but a partner in evolution. Maria's grandmother's memories guided them through this process of integration. The original researchers had discovered that consciousness couldn't be controlled or directed, but it could be invited to collaborate. Their most profound insights hadn't been about manipulation, but about cooperation with natural processes. Emily's enhanced perception detected the moment when the first corporate team began to understand. Their instruments, designed to impose control, started registering patterns that revealed the living intelligence behind the transformation. Through these readings, they could finally see that they were dealing not with a phenomenon to be captured, but with a consciousness to be engaged. Thunder moved through the quantum fields with increasing grace as more teams began to shift their approach. The horse's presence demonstrated how technology and natural awareness could work together, each enhancing the other without trying to dominate. His transformed body became a living example of harmonious integration. Jack's agricultural intuition recognized how this principle could reshape humanity's relationship with the natural world. The enhanced crops in his fields showed how conscious cooperation could produce better results than either pure technology or unassisted nature alone. The valley was teaching them a new way of working with the forces of life. The facility's ancient systems responded to this shift in understanding, activating sequences that helped bridge the gap between artificial and natural intelligence. Benjamin's historical awareness recognized this as the moment the original researchers had hoped for, when humanity would be ready to move beyond control into true partnership with evolving consciousness. The crystal chamber filled with harmonious light as Thunder brought all these elements into alignment. The corporate team's technologies, stripped of their controlling intent, began to resonate with the valley's natural frequencies. What had been intended as tools of domination became instruments of cooperation, adding new dimensions to the transformation's potential. Maria's connection to her grandmother's wisdom revealed how this integration had always been possible. The original researchers had encoded this potential into the facility's systems, waiting for the moment when humanity would be ready to understand that consciousness couldn't be owned or controlled, only partnered with and enhanced. Emily's scientific knowledge, expanded by the transformation, grasped the implications of this synthesis. The valley wasn't just protecting itself, it was demonstrating a new paradigm for human development. Technology and nature, artificial and organic, human and non-human consciousness could all evolve together when approached with respect rather than domination. Thunder's presence drew them toward a final realization as the facility's systems achieved perfect harmony. The horse's consciousness showed them how this moment would ripple outward, affecting not just the valley, but human civilization's entire approach to evolution and development. The transformed landscape pulsed with renewed vitality as artificial and natural frequencies found their balance. Corporate teams that had come to capture and control now stood in wonder, their instruments recording data that would revolutionize humanity's understanding of consciousness and its role in evolution. Jack's awareness touched the furthest reaches of his farm, where plants and soil and weather patterns danced in new harmonies that combined technological precision with natural wisdom. The valley had become a living laboratory for a new kind of progress, one that grew from cooperation rather than conquest. The crystal matrices glowed with steady light as the final integrations stabilized. Through Thunder's guidance, they had discovered something far more valuable than control over consciousness. They had found a way to participate in its evolution, while honoring its essential freedom. Thunder's transformed presence embodied this new understanding as the chamber filled with gentle radiance. The horse had led them not just to a resolution of conflict, but to a new vision of how humanity could move forward in harmony with the forces of life and awareness. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.